So here we are at the final stage of our work with the Imagine session, and we need to send out to the client the final product, so the final mix. We need to have a file that is going to be printed on the disk that we can send out to the client. The way to do it, which is what we've covered before, is called the bounce to disk. So a quick review: you first need to make a selection, the in-out point selection, so that Pro Tools knows from where to where you'd like to get your final work on a file. The way I showed you was to just select the longest clip or track that you have in your session. In that case, I can use either the bass track or the drums track, like so. So as you can see up here, you have this selected area, which is going to be the one that Pro Tools is going to bounce to disk. Now again, mind you, if I've selected only the drums clip here, it doesn't mean that Pro Tools is going to only bounce to disk the drums clip or the drums track. Basically, it's going to just use this as a selection area, and it's going to bounce to disk, so it's going to bounce to disk all these tracks combined together. So basically all audible tracks, whatever you are hearing, you are bouncing to disk. So file bounce to disk would be the regular way to do it. There's a different way to render to disk, which is called the internal bounce. So what we're doing with this other method is we're printing all the tracks onto an audio track inside Pro Tools. So we need to route all the tracks onto or into an audio track and record the final mix onto the specific track. The first little remark that I would like to give you here before I show you how to do it is to make sure always when you're bouncing to disk to have a fade out on your master track at the end of your song, to have a proper fade out in order to cut the chances of having bad endings or every time having to redo a selection and like listening to the end part of your song like, oh, the fade out was better last time or better this time, or I'd rather not have it like this or like that, especially if you have a reverb at the end, a reverb tail, and you'd like to control that reverb tail. So this is how you would do it. So just draw your volume curve on your master track so that you have a clean ending in your session that is consistent every single time. Apart from that, what I would recommend as well for the bounce to disk is to save a memory locator with this bounce to disk selection. So it would be much more accurate to do my selection here on the master track based on the last breakpoint that I have here in my automation curve. So I'm going to quickly zoom out here. So the best way to make my selection is to maybe go up to here and then shift return. So double click on the zoomer tool, and as you can see, it has been all selected. So shift return from this point up to the beginning, and there you go. You have your selection for the bounce to disk, and then I'm going to hit the plus key here to open the memory location window, and I'm going to save my bounce to disk selection under memory locator number 10. This is how I would like to do it. You can choose 15, 7, 6, 8, 5, whatever works for you. But usually I tend to put the bounce to disk selection memory locator under number 10. This way, no matter what session I open, and when I need to do a quick selection to do my bounce, I just period 10 period to recall my memory locator, and then I get the selection all done. So I'm gonna call it bounce and hit OK. So now I have my bounce to disk selection stored under my memory locator number 10 if I need to use it later on as well. So now that I have done all that, let's go quickly to the mix window and see what we have here. So as I said previously, I'm going to need to route all the tracks to an audio track on which I'm going to print my final mix. But before we do that, let's check what we have on our master track. So first we have those plugins that we've inserted. So obviously we need them for the final output. And the second thing is what I was just showing you earlier, is that this automation down here. So we need to preserve these and get them to be printed on my final file. So first thing, before creating an audio track and routing all the tracks to that audio track, I'm going to go ahead and route these tracks to an auxiliary input track first. So that on this auxiliary track, I'm going to be able to use these plugins and to write the final fade automation as well, to preserve these things that the master was doing originally in my mix when I was using the regular bounce to disk feature.